All right. Well, it looks like we can get started. I want to thank everyone for being here this afternoon and welcome you to Resources for Reopening and Returning to Work, a webinar for employers to safely and legally reopen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Trevor Keys, and I'm the president and CEO of Bay Future Incorporated. We're the countywide leading economic development organization that's focused on securing and attracting jobs and investment here in beautiful Bay County, Michigan. So, on behalf of our co hosts at the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, we want to welcome you today and thank you for your valuable time. In an effort to help to our manufacturers and small businesses prepare to reopen or continue to do so, we facilitated this congregation of industry experts from the federal, state, and regional level to provide helpful information to you and your business in this new business world we find ourselves in. I also want to thank Bay Future's Economic Development Manager, Kevin Kuhl, for putting together this wonderful panel of experts today, and thank the Chamber, obviously, for hosting us on the Zoom call today. As a note of housekeeping, the chat feature is open for questions that can be submitted at any time by you and will be utilized by our moderator at the culmination of the collective presentations to dialogue those answers with our panel. Also, if you missed an answer or a resource, this webinar is being recorded and will be published on the reopenbaycounty.com website for reference following this webinar. So with that, let's get right into it. Each panelist will discuss and present on reopening topics for 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll transition to the next speaker until all three have presented. We'll then move into that question and answer phase of the webinar that I talked about just recently, and that will be facilitated by the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce President and CEO, Ryan Tarrant. To introduce all three panelists, first we have Kathy Gase, Lead Economic Development Specialist for the Michigan District Office of the U.S. Small Business Administration, or SBA. Barton Pickelman, who's the Director of MIOSHA, or the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration. And Cheryl Tarrant, the Director of Business Services and Community Relations with Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works. First, we're going to start with Kathy. Kathy's the Lead Economic Development Specialist for the U.S. Small Business Administration's Michigan District Office. She's been with the agency since 1987. She and her staff develop and implement marketing and public relations opportunities to promote SBA programs and services. She's created and chaired many statewide and regional small business conferences, specifically those targeted to women. She's a frequent speaker at small business events and trains hundreds of business owners each year on starting and financing a new business. Kathy will be discussing PPP, or Paycheck Protection Program's newest conditions and what they mean to businesses, along with other federal and SBA programs available to support your businesses. So with that, Kathy.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here today, and I appreciate you having me on the panel. Today, I'd like to go through the SBA Paycheck Protection Program. And let me just advance the slide. Okay. You might need to advance the slides. Not sure why. Here we go. Might just take a minute. So I'm going to talk about the COVID-19 relief options through the Small Business Administration. And I don't know if that's my computer not advancing though, or if it's just taking, I think it's just taking a minute too. So today I'll talk about the Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, and then something that we really haven't talked about much in the public domain, but SBA does have a debt relief program for existing borrowers as well as new borrowers. So I'll talk about that. Okay, the Paycheck Protection Program. I do want to let you know that we have still over $100 billion available in funding for that program. To be eligible, you have to be a small business that has been in existence on February 15th of 2020. You need to have under 500 employees. However, there are many industries in different NAICS codes that have well over 500 small business, employees that would be eligible to apply. In this program, non-profits that are tax exempt, 501c3s, veterans organizations, 501c19s, tribal concerns, as well as sole props, independent contractors, and self-employed are all eligible to apply. The main purpose of this program is to help business owners support the wages, the payroll of their employees. It can also be used for interest, only the interest portion on any mortgage payments if a business owner has rent or utilities. And utilities is kind of a broad category. We're still waiting on some of the guidelines. But internet, cell phones, obviously, electric, gas, water, any of those things would qualify. The loan can be forgiven if at least 60% is used for payroll, and there are some new requirements, so I'm going to speak to that when I talk about the flexibility of the payroll protection program. The terms can be, first of all, the loan amount goes up to $10 million. Originally, we were giving a 2-year term at 1% interest. However, just last week, the PPP Flexibility Act was enacted, and that takes the terms out and extends them to 5 years if the loan was made prior to June 5th, or if your loan was made prior to, if the loan was made June 5th or after. If the loan was made prior to June 5th, the borrower and the lender can negotiate and extend those terms, modify that loan agreement out to 5 years. So again, those payments are deferred. I'll talk about that in a minute because the deferment has also been extended. There are no fees with this loan, no collateral is required, nor are personal guarantees, and that's vastly different than our regular 7A and 504 programs. A business owner applies directly with the lender uses all their own loan docs, and you can find lenders by looking at this link on our website and look for Paycheck Protection /fine. And if you're wanting to see any kind of forms or get an idea of what the application process looks like, you can again go to our loan programs under the coronavirus relief on the SBA's website. So let's talk a little bit about what that Paycheck Protection Program Flexibility Act does for business owners. Again, I want to reiterate that the maturity now is extended from 2 years to 5 years. And as I said just a minute ago, if your loan was made prior to June 5th, you can still get an extension or a modification of that maturity and amortization by just reaching out to your lender and coming to an agreement and amending the loan documents. So we hope that that's going to provide a much needed relief for business owners that are a little bit worried about trying to repay that loan amount within that 2-year time period. Another feature of the Flexibility Act is that it extends the covered period. We call defining the covered period is those 8 weeks that we defined earlier to now 24 weeks after the loan is dispersed. So a business owner, especially in the hospitality industry or salons that are just now coming back online, they will be able to stretch that loan proceed out over a much longer period of time. I have talked to many, many business owners over the last week, and this is going to be such a relief for them. The drop dead date to use that money is December 31st. So existing borrowers can still elect to use that 8-week cover period. So if you're a business owner that was able to come back early, you started using the money, you've finished your 8 weeks, you want to get that loan off your books, we encourage business owners to start the process of forgiveness with their lender so that we can close it out from our end with the lenders and get those loans, as we say, just off the books. But if you need the 24 weeks, it's now there for you. The other nice feature of the Flexibility Act is that it extends the deadline for rehiring employees who were laid off or whose salaries, were reduced prior to April 26th. So now they have they don't have to bring all their people back or rehire or get those salaries up, by a deadline of June 30th, they now have until December 31st, and they still would be eligible for forgiveness. So that, I believe, is going to help a lot of businesses as well. We also enacted what we call a safe harbor for business owners that will not penalize a business owner who, if they can document, they tried to bring back their employees that were on the books as of February 15th, 2020, and they could not bring those individuals back for whatever reason. Maybe some folks would rather stay on unemployment, or they could not hire equally qualified employees. They now have until December 31st, 2020. They will not be penalized. And if your business activity was shut down and you could not comply with bringing employees back, and you were shut down because of, again, federal or, in this case, state regulations, sanitation, social distancing, worker or customer safety requirements, there is a safe harbor. You will not be penalized for the forgiveness part of the loan, and that will be taken into consideration. So that's also a good thing. Okay. All right. Again, the maturity of the PP loans that were approved by SBA, it extends the maturity for 5 years. The deferment, the pay period. So when the SBA remits the loan proceeds to the lender to take care of that loan, as of that day, that's when the deferment begins. Or if the borrower didn't ask for forgiveness, the borrower has 10 months after the last day of the covered period. So that covered period, it's either the 24 weeks or the 8 weeks. You know, this gets a little gray, but it extends the deferment out a longer period of time. And really, we believe most people are going to ask for forgiveness. So when we take care of our end and SBA remits to the lender the loan proceeds for forgiveness, that's the date that the deferment starts. In addition, the new rules will confirm that June 30th is still the last day in which a PPP loan application can be approved. Now let's talk quickly about SBA debt relief programs. This is non-PPP. This is any borrower who has a current SBA 504 or 78 or a microloan are eligible. And any new 504, 78 or microloans that are made between March 27th and September 26th are also eligible. Now the size of the loan, the interest rate, terms, fees, the use of proceeds and collateral, those are all determined by the specific loan program, whether it's 504, 78 or a microloan. What the debt relief does under this program, we do still require personal guarantees. SBA is now covering the principal, interest, and fees for 6 months. So we are making payments to the lender, to the CDC in the Certified Development Company in terms of a 504 or the SBA microlender. So the borrower is not obligated to make those payments for 6 months. You have to apply with the lender that participates in your program, although I've seen letters go out from the SBA that automatically put 504 loans on a deferment. So even though we say apply with the lender, I think that's kind of happening almost automatically. I was just working with the borrower this week and trying to figure out how he needs to do this, and turns out it's already in place, so he's good to go. Let me just say, if there's a new loan that's made and you're seeking debt relief, that loan has to be fully dispersed by the lender, whether it's a micro lender, 504 lender, or a 7A lender by September 27th. You don't have to just apply by September 27th. You need to have that loan dispersed. So if business owners are looking for new money and they want to take advantage of this debt relief option, then they need to apply earlier rather than later and not wait till the end of September, because it may not happen in the time frame. You can read more about it again on our website under debt relief. And then quickly, I just want to mention that SBA has wonderful consulting resources through our small business development centers, our funded women's business centers. We have mentors under SCORE, and we also have a wonderful veterans business outreach center. And all this information is listed here, and I'm sure that you guys will publish this. And then as a way of keeping informed about SBA, waiting for the slide to advance, here we go. You can always go to our website, sba.gov/updates. This is a great way to get information fed to you on an ongoing basis. You can follow us on Twitter. You can send us questions at michigan@sba.gov. You could call us. Our team is all COVID all the time. We check our phone banks. We're all working virtually, but we check our phone banks multiple times a day and try to get back with people within a day, if not the same day. If anyone has an EIDL loan and needs help, you can send your question to michigan@sba.gov. Feel free to do that. We'll walk you through your situation. I am in charge in our office of escalating EIDL cases that can't get resolved up to a higher level at disaster. But you have the option to email disaster customer service or call them on their 1-800 line. So I'll be happy to entertain questions at the appropriate time, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Great information. Yeah, and if you have any additional questions, please utilize that chat function or the Q&A icon at any time. Next up, we have Barton Pickelman, who is the director of MIOSHA, the Michigan Occupational Safety and Health Administration. Bart was appointed director of MIOSHA on October 5th, 2016. He actually began his career at MIOSHA as a compliance officer and served as ergonomic specialist, safety and health manager. So make sure everyone's sitting up while we're taking inventory of this information today. And then MIOSHA deputy director. The MIOSHA program is committed to reducing fatalities, injuries, and illnesses and ensuring a safe and healthy workplace for all employees. As director, Bart oversees all aspects of the MIOSHA program, which includes occupational safety and health compliance in general industry and construction, and the outreach activities of the Consultation, Education, and Training Division. The MIOSHA program also includes the radiation safety section that's responsible for the registration of over 29,000 X-ray machines. Bart himself is also a certified industrial hygienist, CIH, with over 30 years of experience in occupational safety and health in both the private and the public sectors. Bart's demonstrated strong leadership through his administration of the MIOSHA program and its more than 200 employees. He has a true passion for the MIOSHA mission of helping protect the safety of Michigan workers, and we're extremely pleased to have him here today. So Bart will be presenting on PPE, personal protection equipment, how and where you can get it, returning back to work safely, and preparedness and action plan. So with that, Bart, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you, Trevor, for that great introduction. And thank you all for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what MIOSHA is doing to help protect employees as they're returning to work or staying at work, as in the case of some critical workers who have not had any time at home, including myself. What I'd like to start with is, if I can share my screen, I would like to start with showing what we have done in the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity, which houses MIOSHA, the agency of MIOSHA. We have developed a website. The website can be found at michigan.gov/COVID workplace safety. And what this website has done, one of the things that we have done in MIOSHA is we've created a new COVID hotline. That's 855-SAFE-C19. You can see the number there. And if anyone has any questions about requirements, health and safety wise in your workplace to go back to work or continue to work, this is a great resource for you. This number is staffed by MyOSHA personnel, including over 100 field staff. They will take questions from both employees who have concerns about their safety of their workplace. We will also take concerns and questions from employers who are trying to make their workplace compliant with the requirements and protect their employees. So some of the things that we have on the website here, besides the hotline number, if I can scroll up. So overall, we have some narrated PowerPoints. We broke them into employees and one for employers. It goes over the requirements of establishing a COVID preparedness response plan. It starts with you determining what risk level your employees are based on the OSHA guidelines. We have here a sample exposure control plan or preparedness plan for low to medium risk employers. So it's kind of a fill in the blank template for you to comply with that requirement in the executive orders. We also have a lot of posters here. We have fact sheets and some additional resources, including a reopening checklist and workplace safety guidelines. Then as the executive orders are coming out and there are some specific requirements under those EOs for different sectors, MyOSHA is preparing a PowerPoint presentation specific to those requirements in those sectors. So we have them now for manufacturing, for construction, for restaurants and bars, research laboratories, office guidance, retail, outpatient healthcare, gyms and fitness, and we are working on the personal care. Well, we have the personal care and working on some others that just came out on Friday. So MyOSHA's overall enforcement approach to COVID is to simply provide the guardrails for employers out there to protect their employees. It's a performance-based approach versus providing very specific or specifications for all the various types of industries. We realize that each employer and their employees are best suited to understand their operations, and with consulting the CDC guidelines, OSHA guidelines, best practices, and the executive orders, they will be best suited to come up with a plan to protect everybody there. The enforcement for MyOSHA will focus on the executive orders, the CDC guidance, and the OSHA guidance. The process starts, as I said, with the employer doing an exposure determination for their employees using the OSHA guidance of low, medium, high, and very high exposure risks. The high and very high exposure risk categories are those employers who are actually working, or their employees are working with, known or suspected COVID-19 patients. The low and medium risk categories are those that don't work on the known or suspected COVID-19 individuals. So low is those industries that really have little contact with not only their coworkers, but no contact with the general public. So examples of low risk would be construction, especially outdoors, and offices that aren't open to the general public. Then when you get into the medium risk category, you're introducing the general public interaction because of the asymptomatic nature of the disease. You have to treat everybody with the potential of having the virus. And so there's some extra precautions for the medium risk category. So once you've done your exposure determination and put together whether you may have employees that fit in different categories. So even within MyOSHA, my office staff are actually in the low risk category, but my field staff, who are actually going into Grocery stores and the medium risk obviously have those risk characteristics, but I also have staff going into the hospitals and healthcare providers, nursing homes. So, you know, your plan that you're going to put together is going to address all of the risk categories for your employees and what precautions you're going to take for each of those. Some will require some personal protective equipment, especially in the very high risk categories. We don't want healthcare workers or nursing home workers exposed to COVID-19 positive folks without the proper respiratory protection on, for example. Other risk categories won't need personal protective equipment. On the note of personal protective equipment and face mask versus respirators, one of the big confusing factors we have out there is what is the difference between a face mask, a face covering, a respirator, an N95 mask. I will try to simplify it and say an N95 rating is a rating done by NIOSH, and an N95 is actually a respirator and must be treated as a respirator. And we have a respiratory protection standard in place that requires employers to do things when they require the use of that N95 respirator or greater protection respirator. Anything else is not considered personal protective equipment from a MIOSHA standpoint. So the face coverings and the surgical masks are not considered personal protective equipment. They are more to protect others. So you're wearing the N95 masks and the respirators to protect yourself. You're wearing the face coverings and the surgical masks to protect others from you. So back to the exposure control or preparedness plan. Parts of the plan would include administrative controls, which includes the health screening, social distancing, cleaning and disinfecting the workplace, engineering controls when applicable and necessary, such as, you know, you've seen the physical barriers when you go into the grocery stores, the plexiglass all over the place. The PPE issues are going to be determined based on your risk category. And the plans are also going to have to include an employee training section so that you can train your employees on the signs and symptoms, how the virus is spread, how to report any positive or symptomatic individuals, the precautions you've put into place to mitigate the spread. Those are the things you need to train your employees on. So let me show you just briefly some of the video here. This will get here. I don't think it's going to. I'll let you explore our website. How's that? So with that, I guess I will turn my time over to the facilitator and we'll entertain questions as appropriate.
Great, Bart. Thank you. We will follow up too with attendees on information that's been presented that we received from our panelists, specifically links and PowerPoint presentations as well, as is applicable. Any questions for Bart, please utilize that chat function or the Q&A icon at any time, and do so as we introduce Cheryl Tarrant as well. Cheryl Tarrant is the Director of Business Services and Community Relations at the Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works, which is a consortium of Saginaw Bay, Midland, Gratiot, and Isabella counties established to operate workforce development programs for our region. Michigan Works strengthens the local economy, one, by assisting regional employers and in finding and retaining qualified employees. And 2, by assuring that the labor force meets the needs of those regional employers. Prior to her position at Michigan Works, Cheryl worked as the Director of Operations at the Great Lakes Bay Regional Alliance. Cheryl resides in Bay City with her husband, Ryan, and 2 children, and she received her bachelor's degree from Saginaw Valley State University. Cheryl will present on the WorkShare program, Let's Get Back to Work Bay County program, and an upcoming event that you may be interested in participating in. So with that, Cheryl Tarrant. Thanks, Cheryl.
Okay, so I would be remiss if I did not start my presentation by really saying we are not the unemployment agency. Anybody who has ever heard any of us from Michigan Works talk, first thing we say is we are not the unemployment agency. We are focused on employment in our region. Let's see. I'm going to try and advance the slide. Our focus is employment. So with that, oddly enough, I'm going to present some information to you about the WorkShare program, which is an unemployment program. With the increased amount of phone calls and needs that the unemployment agency for the state of Michigan has been facing, Michigan Works agencies from around the state have stepped up and kind of started to carry the torch a little bit and assist the state of Michigan in spreading the word on not just normal unemployment agency questions and unemployment needs, but they've also asked for us to be able to present and talk about the WorkShare program, which is completely in line with what we do because it really does serve and assist the businesses in our region. So we were happy to step up and do what we can. With that said, with some of the questions, if I don't know the answer, I will get the answer for you, but I'm not going to make it up as I go, I promise. So the WorkShare program is the state of Michigan's program, and the entire focus of it is to assist employers in bringing back their employees. It is at reduced hours, and it is at sometimes a reduced amount. This is not a new program. This program has been around. Generally, it was used by large industrial employers to avoid mass layoffs. So while it's not a new program, the state of Michigan did make some changes to it to make it more usable by small and medium-sized businesses. So what's really important to understand is that while it allows people to, or employers to bring back their workforce at a reduced rate, the unemployment benefit of WorkShare makes up a large portion of the lost wages. And that's especially significant right now with the federal benefit of the additional $600 that is going to end at the end of July. So we want to always keep that in mind, that the $600 is going to end at the end of July, and that is going to have a huge impact on how many people are willing to work, how many people are not willing to work at this time. So how it works is employees are paid a certain percent of reduced salary, but they are also given a percent of unemployment benefits, and at this time also the additional $600 of the pandemic unemployment assistance unemployment through the CARES Act. So if you've heard people refer to PUA, P-U-A, that is the CARES Act. So for example, if a worker's hours are reduced by 50% by their employer, they're eligible for 50% of the WorkShare benefit. So that's how that kind of makes that up. Just so you kind of have a mindset or a frame of reference, normal unemployment here in the state of Michigan, the max benefit per person is $362 a week. The amount kind of varies, and that depends on the employee's the employee's wage history. But in general, they'll get $362 under normal unemployment. So with WorkShare, I think it's really important for everybody to understand that this is completely flexible and it's designed by the employer. The employer gets to pick which employees they want on the WorkShare program. They get, the only requirement is, what they do is they call it a unit. So you create units that have employees in it, and it has to have a minimum of 2 employees in each plan. The employer can have multiple units or work share plans per company. So let me give you an example. You may choose to reduce your first shift unit by 50%, your second shift unit by 10%, and your third shift unit by 40%. So it's designed to meet whatever the employer needs for their business to be successful. Another example would be, maybe you are bringing all of your employees back and your maintenance team needs to have increased hours because of cleaning and COVID controls. Well, your front office staff maybe doesn't need to be in the office as much. So you may reduce your front office staff by 10%, by like 50%, and then you may reduce your maintenance team by 10%. So I hope that kind of clears up any questions on that. It's designed so that the employer can choose to decrease hours and wages by as little as 10% and to a max of 60%. And the employer totally creates this entire plan to meet their own needs, and they submit this to the WorkShare program. So plans can be approved up to 52 consecutive weeks. And I think it's really important to note this. We were getting an increased amount of calls in the beginning of all of the layoffs where employers were saying, why can't I just bring my employees back and just not work them as many hours? You know, what's the difference between doing that and they would just get their normal unemployment as a balance, as opposed to doing WorkShare? It's important to note that these plans can go up to 52 consecutive weeks. So this is a pro. You know, this falls in the pro category because regular unemployment only lasts 26 weeks. So you have 52 weeks for an employer to kind of balance. You know, you want to make sure that your employees are taken care of. They're not just employees to a lot of us. They're essentially extensions of our own families. So to be able to take care of them for 52 weeks as opposed to just the regular unemployment benefit of 26 weeks, that's significant. These plans can end anytime with no penalty. So if you've designed your program and it's 12 weeks long that you've designed, and after 8 weeks you do a kind of reevaluate where you are as an organization and you decide, you know what, I think we're all set, we don't need to do the WorkShare plan again, there's no penalty to ending the WorkShare program. And you can create a new plan at any time. You can put anybody that you care to inside of those units. So part-time employees can be part of this plan. The only caveat that I would say that has caught a couple of people is that employees cannot be certifying on another UIA claim at the same time as they're part of your WorkShare program. This would happen if maybe you have somebody who has a second job and they've been laid off from that position and they're collecting unemployment on that other job. They need to stop collecting unemployment on that in order to become part of your WorkShare program. So it's really important to have that conversation with your employees to find out if they have any other positions to be looking at. Employers, if you have a bargaining unit inside your facilities, you do have to obtain permission or approval from the collective bargaining unit at that facility to make sure that your WorkShare plan is meets their standards. A couple other things, you can't transfer people in between, so you can't set up 3 units and decide to maybe transfer somebody from one unit to the next unit. They have to stay within their unit. You can't lay anybody off who's inside any of these WorkShare units. And employers, you can't make any changes to fringe benefit plans of anybody who's participating inside that unit. So this is just kind of an idea so you get, this is an example. So if an employee works normal hours and they earn $1,000 a week, under WorkShare they retain they are retained with a 30% reduction in their hours and their wages. So their salaries would then be $700 a week from the employer plus 30% of their unemployment. And then of course, until the end of July, they would get that $600. So if you look over to the other side of the screen, you know, with WorkShare, they are, you know, about $1,400 as opposed to if you were just doing unemployment, it would be $962. So again, until the end of July, you're going to hear me continue to stress that. It's, you know, there's a huge benefit to your employees. Again, the purpose of this program is to retain and not lay off a large amount of people. So to be able to bring them back at this rate is quite beneficial. So just a couple of final notes. Again, I just want to stress that WorkShare program can last as long as 52 weeks with no penalty for ending early, as opposed to the 26 weeks of normal unemployment. It's important to note that the entire program is run through the employer's MyWAM account. So as the employer, you are the one who goes in and certifies. A lot of people know that under normal unemployment, if I were laid off, I would go in and I would certify myself for the hours that I've worked. Under WorkShare, the employer actually goes in and does all the certification. So if you have, you know, if you're a large company, you know, that's something to think about. It's going to take some time to enter all of that data in. They do have uploading abilities, but the system is a little archaic. So, you know, plan to take some time. So I just want to kind of lay that out there. If you have a unit, let's say that you had identified would be working at a 60% reduced rate, and when you go in to certify, you realize that you've brought them back for 400% of their hours during the week. All you would do is just not certify that week, so you don't have to worry about, you know, will you lose everything? You just simply don't certify for that week. You know, the question gets asked, when should you start the process as to when, you know, when should I start applying to do this? And from everything that we've gathered and the information that we've been told, they suggest between 10 to 14 days before you actually need that program to start. Once your plan is approved, it will start the following Sunday. So WorkShare program runs as a Saturday through Sunday program. A lot of employers do their certifications on Saturday. So that's also just a couple of things to keep in mind. If you want to end the program, again, it's a very simple thing to do, but it does take approximately a week. So this is kind of like a week-long program. Just keep that in mind. So if you're planning on ending it, you should plan on that happening, you know, taking about a week to do. And you are allowed to make changes to your plans or modify it, but you do want to wait until, you know, if you submit it, you get approved and you realize right away, oh, that's not going to work. You do need to ride that out for 1 week before you can make changes to it. So that's another piece to kind of keep in mind. The Office of Employer Ombudsman line is on the screen. If you hit the option 7, that gets you straight into the WorkShare line. There's a lot of resources right now available, and if you do that dangerous thing and just Google WorkShare, a whole lot's going to pop up. So we do suggest that you, I think it's UIA Michigan.gov/UIA, click to go into the WorkShare. You know, I could put up numerous flyers and fact sheets that come out almost daily. You know, I would suggest going onto the website and really looking. I can certainly send some brochures over Trevor's way so that he can send those out as attachments. But if you do have any other questions, I'm happy to answer as much as I can. And if I cannot answer it, I will get a hold of my contact over at UIA and work as a conduit between the two. So that WorkShare at Great Lakes Bay, Michigan Works. We are really excited to have launched our Let's Get Back to Work Great Lakes Bay campaign. This was kind of put together on, honestly, about a week into all of the layoffs. We were ready to get back to work already, and we were already looking forward to what are our employers going to need to do this. So you'll see some Let's Get Back to Work Great Lakes Bay signs out there, and it's really twofold. It's to encourage our employers, to get back to action, which really does not take much to do. They are eager. But it's also to encourage our workforce to start preparing themselves to return to work. We're doing this through a variety of seminars for the workforce, collecting resumes, getting back to what Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works does best, which is prepare our workforce for their next step, for their career, and to assist our employers in their success through all the trainings that we provide here. So we are in the process right now of planning a pretty large outdoor job fair to assist employers with face-to-face interviewing. We're working out logistics right now, and you know that I will be pulling Trevor and Ryan in both to help promote and push this, because it's so important that, as a region, we work together to encourage our workforce to get back to work. So if there's anything that I can do for you as the employer, or any questions I can answer about WorkShare, please feel free to send them my way, send them through Ryan, send them through Trevor, or on the chat, and I'll do my best to help you out.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm Ryan Tarrant. I'm the president and CEO of the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce, and I am acting as today's moderator for our three panelists. We have Catherine Gase with the Small Business Administration, Barton Pickleman with MIOSHA, and Cheryl Tarrant with Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to ask those questions. I know we're going to run short on time, I'm sure, on the questions, so we'll do them a little bit rapid fire. I'd like to start with Catherine. Catherine, when does the deferment of a PPP loan begin now that the time frame for using the money has been extended to 24 weeks? Oop, let me unmute you, Karen.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And I think I misspoke during my presentation. I just want to clarify that instead of a straight 6-month deferment period from the date that the loan was disbursed, the deferment period now goes until the point at which SBA repays or remits the loan amount to the lender.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Barton, one of the questions that we hear pretty frequently is from employees saying that their employer is making them go back to work and they don't feel safe. What can they do in that situation?
Yes, as I said before, the best thing for them to do is report to work, determine what precautions the employer has put into place, check those CDC guidelines and OSHA guidelines, and if they have any questions whatsoever, call that 800 hotline number where our staff will be happy to explain the requirements and what should or shouldn't be in place and help them to either resolve their issue or assist them with filing a complaint with MIOSHA.
Thank you, Barton. Cheryl, are employers having a tough time calling their workers back with the additional unemployment income, that supplemental $600 that's allowing some of them to make more on unemployment than they make when they're not unemployed?
I wish I could say no, but yes, there are sectors of our region that are struggling to call their workers back. We get phone calls a lot about what our employer writes during this kind of conversation. As part of the Let's Get Back to Work Great Lakes Bay campaign, part of the reason that we are pushing our workforce to get back to work is because we want them to have employment when they go back. What we've been advising, of course, hey, I have to say, I'm not an attorney. I always say contact your labor attorney first, but we've advised our employers to make sure that they are clearly communicating all of the safety precautions that they are taking to protect not just their employees, but their customers alike. We are encouraging our employers to keep everything in writing. When you ask for your employees to come back, be clear about the position that they're coming back to, if it's changed or if it's the same. You know, make sure that they've gone through the CARES Act so that there are no pre-qualifying reasons for an employee to not need to return. But they can be clear that, you know, at any point in time, if they've called their employees back and the answer is no, I'm doing better on unemployment than when I'm working for you, or something along those lines, the employer does have the right to contact UIA and to let them know that the employee has refused to come back to work. And we're also encouraging our employers to be very clear that they are considering a no-show, a refusal to return to work, and a termination for employment. So, you know, as we're talking with our job seekers or our workforce, we're also talking to employers at the other end and making sure everybody's aware of what their rights are. So clear communication is the key. But yeah, we do have some employers who are struggling, but it is an opportunity for others. As positions are open and people choose to not return to work, there's going to be talent in the region that is going to be looking for a fresh start.
Thank you. I think this is probably for Barton, but Cheryl and Catherine, feel free to jump in. Here in the Q&A box, we have a question from one of our members. It's a small insurance brokerage, and they've all been working at home since the stay-at-home order began. How do they decide when to bring those employees back into the office, or should they keep them telecommuting at this point because they're able to? I think there's still a lot of confusion out there, you know, among employees and employers alike. And, you know, I think the vast majority of our businesses really want to be cautious and do things safely and take care of their employees. So, you know, that's kind of the question. You know, when do they start to bring some of those folks back that are telecommuting?
Well, from the executive order standpoint, you know, they're allowed to come back if they're office workers now, provided you've put in the proper precautions, you have your COVID-19 preparedness plan in place. You know, from the state standpoint, they are encouraging all of our state employees to stay in the remote work as long as possible. I think this is going to reshape a little bit about how we all do our business and how many of our employees actually have to be in the brick and mortar buildings or not. But my response would be, you can bring them back when you feel it's safe to do so. You put the proper precautions in place, you know, developed your plans, did your risk assessments, and trained them on the health symptoms, the symptom screening. I didn't mention that during my presentation either, is we have developed a Michigan MI symptoms application, which will help employers with that screening, that health screening requirement. So that is out there. From my personal agency standpoint, my office staff are staying remote for the near future.
Great. Thank you, Barton. Catherine, we have some employers, you know, where they have several employees who have chosen to not return to work. And the question is, are they going to be penalized on the forgiveness of those PPP loans if they run into a situation where that employee doesn't return?
That's a great question. And that's one of the things that the PPP Flexibility Act addresses. And that act contains what we call a safe harbor provision that does not penalize an employer for employees who will not come back. And all the employer has to do is, you know, testify to the fact that they, in good faith, in writing, try to call the employees back and did not. So they will not be penalized in the loan forgiveness calculation.
Okay, great, thank you. We have one here in our Q&A box that, you know, from an employer who has a part-time worker that's receiving Social Security disability benefits and wondering if they would qualify for the work share program. Apparently they're currently being denied unemployment and PUA benefits because they're not working full-time, being on Social Security disability. And so, would they qualify for a work share program if they were to engage in that?
I would say that it would fall in line with the normal UIA. But if you get me contact information, I will reach out to that person and I will certainly send that up the chain and get them the answer that they need. But I don't want to answer a question incorrectly about something as serious as this. So don't know, but I will absolutely find out.
Great. And I do have one more question for you. What advice do you have for employers who are looking to hire but are concerned about finding the talent that they need during the COVID-19 pandemic?
We actually have, in the month of June, we're in day 10. I've already posted over 500 jobs. There are plenty of people who are hiring right now. And there are plenty of people who are unsure about whether or not they're going to have a position to go back to. We're encouraging our employers right now to let us know about those difficult to find, difficult to fill positions, because the sad reality of what's going on right now is that there are going to be companies that are going to need to close their doors. And the talent from those companies is going to be actively seeking out employment. So please contact us, let us know what you're looking for, and we will do everything that we can to help find the talent that you're looking for. This is the time. This is the time to contact us before it's too late, before you're stuck in before you have heartburn from not having those positions filled. Let us know what we can do so that we can start actively searching for you.
Great. I did have one more pop up before I turn things back over to Trevor to close us out. We have an employer who's looking for places to purchase PPE, especially the N95 masks and thermometers. They're having some difficulty finding medical grade thermometers, and those that are available are not reliable in their readings. Here in Bay County, we have a Reopen Bay County website. It's reopenbaycounty.com, and there are some links there to purchasing PPE equipment. But Barton, are you guys making any headway? Is there any information on your website for connecting employers with distributors of PPE?
Yeah, not necessarily on MIOSHA's website, but I will, if I can share my screen again. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, has a resource page for COVID-19. And there you will see the PMBC COVID procurement platform. If you click on that, it will put you in touch with those that have procurement needs versus the businesses that have the supplier capabilities. So that's a potential source for you for that.
Great, thank you. And with that, I would like to turn things back over to Trevor.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan. And thank you so much too for all of you that participated today. I also want to thank our panelists and their represented organizations, SBA, MIOSHA, Great Lakes Bay Michigan Works, and the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce. Again, if you have any questions that come up after we log off or that you didn't have an opportunity to ask, please reach out to us and we'll get those answers for you as soon as we can. Again, this recorded webinar will be made available at the website reopenbaycounty.com under the tab COVID Support and Events. And if you haven't had an opportunity, you will see MIOSHA plan there. You will see a Bay County Health Department plan. You'll see some of the resources that were discussed today as it relates to putting that preparedness plan together to keep your employees and your patrons safe. Also, as a shameless plug, in an attempt to keep our small businesses, specifically restaurants, retail, and service providers operating, we've launched the Buy BC gift card supplemental program that is live now. Please visit bayfuture.com, baycityarea.com, or either of our Facebook pages for information on how to save some money while helping to save some small businesses. All the best to everyone. Have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for your time. Thank you, panelists.